You may have heard that effective July 1st, the new overtime rule kicks in. That's right, the Department of Labor has recently updated the eligibility for jobs getting overtime or not. Now, what are you supposed to do? Hi entrepreneurs, I'm Vicky Brown, and you're in the right place if you want to engage your team, boost your business, and grow your leadership muscle. Okay, so let's start with some of the basics. There are basically two classifications of jobs in the U.S. Jobs eligible for overtime, also known as non-exempt, and jobs that are not eligible for overtime, known as exempt. Now, keep in mind, all of this refers to the job, not the person, because everything turns on the specifics of the job. But to make things a bit easier and more familiar, going forward, I'm going to refer to the employee versus the job. So, we have two categories, but what makes one person exempt and another non-exempt? Well, the Department of Labor considers every job in the country eligible for overtime, meaning non-exempt. And the only way to opt out of being non-exempt is by having the job hit certain criteria. Officially speaking, it's the duties and wages test. The job duties have to meet a certain level, and additionally, the salary or wages have to hit a certain level. On the job duty side, there are broadly 6 exempt categories. They are executive, administrative, professional, computer professional, outside sales, and highly compensated. Now here's a really quick and very general overview of each category. First up, executive. Now, among other things, the person must direct the work of at least 2 or more full-time employees. So that means having authority over them, giving them work, evaluating their performance, recommending to hire or fire, and actually hiring or firing. Next, the administrative category. And no, this doesn't mean administrative assistant. The administrative exemption is for jobs that involve management of your or your customers' general business operations. It also has a special phrase that the regulators love to use. Quote, includes the exercise of discretion and independent judgment with respect to matters of significance, unquote. Now, everybody always asks me what that means, and it's such a hazy statement that I have to refer them directly to the Department of Labor's explanation, which goes a little something like this. In general, the exercise of discretion and independent judgment includes the comparison and the evaluation of possible courses of conduct, and acting or making a decision after the various possibilities have been considered. Okay, there's more, but you get the idea. I'll put the link to the actual Department of Labor overview in the description. Now, onward to the next category, professional. This category also isn't what it sounds like. Sure, we're all professionals, or at least we try to be. But this exemption category is for learned professionals. So, among other things, the job must require advanced knowledge in a field of science or learning, kind of like a CPA. Now, let me be clear. If you have a bookkeeping job, but the person you have in the job is a CPA, that does not mean the job meets the professional exemption. You see, all these exemption categories apply to the minimum requirements of the position, not the knowledge or experience of a person who may have that job right now. If it isn't a requirement to hold a CPA, but it's a nice to have, I'm afraid that job is still considered non-exempt. Next up, computer professional. Now, this one is closer to what you think it is, but with a little twist, of course. It's an analyst, computer programmer, engineer, etc. It is not someone who manages and fixes workstations. Now, surprisingly, the outside sales exemption, well, that's precisely what it sounds like. The job has to be sales done outside the employer's place of business. So if you have someone doing cold calls from your office, that would not qualify. And finally, the highly compensated position. And we'll get into much more on that later. Now again, keep in mind, you have to see how the job stacks up against the exempt categories to figure out if it qualifies as exempt, again, meaning not eligible for overtime, or non-exempt, meaning eligible for overtime. Now, in addition to the criteria we just talked about, the executive, administrative, and professional exemptions, they have a minimum wage that has to be paid. Otherwise, the person is automatically considered overtime eligible. And that's the crux of it all. The Department of Labor is changing that minimum wage rate. It used to be $684 per week, but effective July 1st, 2024, it's moving on up to $844 per week. And that's not all. The highly compensated category has a minimum amount, and it's changing too. It used to be that people making $107,432 per year were considered highly compensated and exempt. But now you have to make at least $132,964 a year to sit in the highly compensated category. So if you make less than that, the only way you would be considered exempt from overtime is if you qualify under one of the other categories. So what should you do to manage this big shift? Well, in next week's episode, I'll lay out a roadmap to help you navigate these new changes. If you found this information helpful, please subscribe and share. And remember, your inspired leadership is the secret sauce to having a high-performance team and a wildly successful business you'll love. I'll see you next time on Leader's Journey.